Welcome everybody to our lesson on leaves. I hope you've enjoyed your day so far and you had a healthy breakfast. Shall we? Okay, here's the drill. We got number 40 in our notes. We're going to be looking at some of the structures that we're going to label. You can see on the slide before you, big picture stuff, except for I seem to be covering up leaf right here. I eat him up. And then we'll answer some questions, then come back to that labeling on our diagram. So at this point, you can just pause it and you can get these things labeled. I'll let you do that, and I'll get out of your hair for a moment. Actually, while I got you here, maybe I should talk about the blade of a leaf. You've heard of a blade of grass. It's just the name for the flat surface. That is a leaf. Call it the blade. And it has a few forms. You can see on the right side of your diagram a simple leaf, which is a single blade. And then on the right side, you have something called a compound leaf, which is made up of a whole bunch of different little small pieces that we will describe in a minute. Okay, so you've got the blade figured out. The next thing is, what the heck is that thing that connects the blade to a stem? It's called a petiole. P-E-T-I-O-L-E, petiole. So that would be number 42. You got that? I knew you did. I've known it all along. Okay, so here we're on number 43. Simple leaf, compound leaf difference. Simple leaf is pretty simple. It's got a single one and only one blade and one petiole. That's pretty simple, just one, buddy. The compound leaf, on the other hand, is lots of little petioles. They connect other little leaflets together and then also to the stem. So compound leaf has many leaflets, many petioles, and simple leaf, nope, just one. Okay, so now let's look at a cross section of a leaf. Leaves are pretty flat, but they're not two-dimensional. Nope, they got structure. They're many cells thick. So let's take a peek at a cross section of a leaf. You can see that both the upper and lower surfaces are covered by our epidermis, which sounds familiar because that's our dermal tissue. But surrounding the epidermis on a leaf is this waxy layer called the cuticle. And there it is. I'm not having you label this anywhere. I'll have us work on something like that later. Yeah, okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the cuticle. All right, that cuticle over there, what's his deal? So if you remember about the cuticle, it's that little bit of your fingernail at the bottom of it, right in there. Yeah, but what about in plants? It's the little waxy layer. So what's the purpose of it? It's to be waterproof. It's supposed to protect the leaf from water loss. So a waterproof layer keeps what water is in a leaf. It keeps it from going away. Conserve that sweet, sweet, precious, delicious. Hi. So let's talk about number 45, which is a whole bunch of different parts of this leaf. So I'll just kind of talk about in the subsequent slides and then make sure we get it. So the first thing we'll talk about is the vein, which is actually the third item down there. Anyways, the vein obviously consists of our vascular tissues. You know about the veins in leaves we've talked about. In monocots, they have a parallel vein pattern in the leaf, and in dicots, they are branching. Either way, you got veins in a leaf, and it's to transport materials. Got xylem, got phloem, vascular tissue, leaf vein. Okay? Leaf vein, got it. Okay, well, we've also got this stuff called mesophyll. So in a leaf, we have ground tissue takes the form of this stuff called mesophyll. Okay, so the filler, right? Whoop. That seems better. Yep. Whoop. Whoop. So we have a couple types of mesophyll that we see here in a leaf. So we'll talk about the palisade and the spongy mesophyll in the subsequent slides. Okay. All right, the first mesophyll we're talking about is the palisade mesophyll. So the way we think about the palisade mesophyll here, it's on the upper surface of a leaf, And as you can see in the picture, it's got these little dark green dots in them. And what are those dark green dots? Yes, chloroplasts. Excellent. Most of the chloroplasts in a leaf are on the upper surface. That makes sense because that's where the sunlight is, right? Most sunlight hits the upper surface of a leaf. So these palisade mesophyll cells are where most of the chloroplasts in a leaf are jam-packed in there, and it is the primary site of photosynthesis within a leaf. So palisade mesophyll, they're really jam-packed in tight together. You can see they're squished in, and they're really tall, skinny cells. They are described as like a palisade. I don't know if you've ever seen the whole bunch of like spiky logs outside of like a Stone Age castle or building. You got these pointy pokies, those are called palisades. So that's why it's named after that, because they're tall and pointy. Maybe like the pillars outside of a palace, but that's not the word root, but still it's kind of like that. Palisade, tall, skinny, palisade. Okay, let's talk spongy mesophyll, the other type of mesophyll. So you can see this is like the lower 2/3 or 3/4 of a leaf. It's called spongy mesophyll. There's a lot of gaps and spaces between all those cells. If you peek at that, yep, I see a lot of spaces in there. Why is that? Well, as we'll see in a second, that lower surface of the leaf has some holes in it. And air has to get up, carbon dioxide has to get up through those holes in the bottom surface of a leaf and work its way up to the palisade mesophyll, which is where most of the photosynthesis is happening. So that's where the CO2 gets in, and also the waste product of photosynthesis, which is oxygen, that way it can get out. So that space between those cells allows for that gas exchange. In and out, everybody's happy that way. All right, a moment ago I just talked about the air spaces between the cells of the spongy mesophyll that permit gas exchange. Well, how does that gas again get into a leaf? You got these tiny openings in the bottom of a leaf, mostly the bottom. They're called stomata. So stoma is from a word that means hole or opening. All right, so that's where these tiny little openings are. Ooh, looks like I'm blocking that too. Maybe I'll shift that picture over. Yeah, so what I just said didn't make any sense because I'll move the picture in a minute and it won't be blocked. Anyway, stomata are these little holes in the bottom of the leaf. So don't forget about that. And if you did forget it, what's stomata with you? Okay, so the stoma, astoma, mini stomata, so is surrounded by these two little cells. They're called guard cells. So these guard cells, and I'll talk about their mechanism a little bit in a second, but they open and close the stomata. Because if you're a plant and you're doing photosynthesis, you obviously need sunlight. And at nighttime, can you do photosynthesis? You cannot. So why would you risk losing water evaporating through those little tiny openings at night? You wouldn't. And so under other conditions too, but plants are able to open and close their stomata by a mechanism that we'll talk about in a second, based on these guard cells. It's based on water pressure in those guard cells. So I'll explain that. But that should take us through then number 45. So we've talked about palisade, spongy, mesophylls, vein, stomata, and guard cells. So you should have those sorted out by now. If not, go back, check it out, but you've got it. I won't say the answers in the right order for you, but I'll mouth it. Did you get it? I said it. 46, it's where we are. So let's talk about transpiration. This might be a word you remember from the water cycle. Here it is. It's water evaporating from leaves, aka leaf sweat. So transpiration is just leaf sweat. So water gets into the leaves again, being transported through the xylem all the way from the roots, right? We'll talk about the importance of that in the next section. So not in this lecture, but in the next one, 23.5. Anyways, we've got water going up from the roots where it's absorbed all the way through the stem, through those vascular tissues, through the xylem. Then it gets to the leaf where the water is used for photosynthesis, but there's extra. There's always extra. And that water evaporates through the stomata. And that's what transpiration is. Happens all the time. So there you go. That's number 46, transpiration. All right, so I just talked about this just a touch, but 47, so it says, why must the plant keep its stomata open at least part of the time? Well, the stomata allow for gas exchange, letting CO2 in, letting oxygen out, which means they need to be open to do photosynthesis, but you don't want to open so much that you lose too much water. So there's a little balance that they have to keep, these little guys, that the guard cells have to manage. Don't be open too much, and don't close it too much, or else you can't do photosynthesis. Lose too much water, can't do photosynthesis. There's a balance. So there's a dandy little mechanism, little system right in place for doing that. And did you have a question? Who? Who? So how in the world do these guard cells work? Water pressure, that's it, man. So when there's high water pressure, the guard cells swell, and that makes their shape open up the little tiny kind of empty space between the two guard cells, the stoma. So these are, again, singular astoma, plurals mini stomata. So the guard cells, when they have enough water, they swell, opening the stomata. This is great because if you have enough water, that means you can afford to lose water. But what happens if there's not much water pressure? You guessed it, these stomata close, they pinch shut. They lose pressure and they just kind of collapse, and that closes up the stomata. So it's a mechanism to prevent further water loss. That's why you gotta water your plants though, because if you don't, then the stomata can't be open and they can't do photosynthesis, which means plants can't make food and they're gonna get hungry. And that's rude to not feed them. So anyways, that's the little mechanism that we're working on for 48 there. And let's move on to some maybe quiz questions. Huh? All right, compound leaves. Which one of these best describes a compound leaf? A blade with many petioles, 2 or more blades, a blade that's divided into leaflets, many blades, each with its own petiole. What do you think? Okay, let's go with C. That's the one you always guess anyways. So lots of leaflets. Of course, they all have their own petioles too. So it's one petiole. This is why A is wrong. It's one petiole attached as a blade, but there are leaflets attached by petioles too. So mini petioles, basically. Okay, what's the layer of cells in the leaf that does most of the absorbing of light? So in other words, which is doing most of the photosynthesis? In other words, where are most of the chloroplasts? All right, this was a softball. So there you go. It's the palisade mesophyll. I could have asked you spongy mesophyll, made it a little tougher, but I didn't, because I'm a nice fella. Okay, what is it about the structure of the leaf that makes it good at doing its job? So let's think about the trade-off between getting lots of sunlight and not losing too much water. So which of these is the best answer? What do you think? You want to maximize or minimize sun exposure? You want to maximize or minimize water loss? Well, duh. Yeah. All right. Which of these is the process by which water is lost in a leaf? I called it leaf sweat earlier. Well, that was pretty quick. You guys got that one. So that wasn't even a challenge. Okay, gas exchange. Where does this happen in the leaf? So I'm asking for specifically how does gas get into a leaf? Now that clarified things. Now you got it. Stomata. I'm proud of you. You did it. You made it. It's time to get paid. So let me tell you this week's secret. Come on. Bring it in. Okay, so this week's secret takes us back to circa 1985, where my parents thought it would be a sick idea to answer an advertisement that they saw, probably in a newspaper or some such. And they had me model underwear for the JCPenney catalog. So here I am, all grown up now, a former underwear model. That you can't make this up. So there's this week's secret. You can look all over the internet, you're not going to find anything. Challenge issued. You have 3 weeks.